Hi everyone, my name is Tori, and I'm going to be doing my exaggeration speech for my advanced public speaking class at Central Washington University today. This is Boba. She helps me sometimes. She probably won't stick around that long. Yep, nope. And so with that being said, we'll just go ahead and get right into it. So when people tell you to start your day with a bang, they usually don't mean this. I'm sure at one point or another you guys have all seen the Fast and the Furious movies, or at least seen a car like that if you're anywhere from Tacoma or surrounding areas. That's kind of what I do with my cars, but without the stealing DVD players element. So growing up, I've always loved cars. If you watched my last video, I introduced that topic just a little bit. I've been showing cars and working on them since I was 16, and obviously sparked more interest in it when I began to drive. So I currently have a 1992 Miata and a 2015 Subaru WRX. So today I'm going to tell you the story of how I got my WRX and then how I immediately proceeded to just go and blow it up. Not exaggerating. I know it's the exaggeration speech, but I'm not. I blew it up. So I'm going to tell you the circumstances of the surrounding story, the actual event of the car blowing up, and then how I was able to get home that night and finally get my car back. So let's just go ahead and start with how that night unfolded. So picture this. It's been a long week, you're tired of dealing with the Karens of the world, and just lots of hours being screamed at, trying to make everyone happy, and in a nutshell, you're ready to go home, you're ready to have a night out with your friends. So I got off my shift at the Subaru dealership. That's actually an important fact for later in the story. I was working at a Subaru dealership. And I went home to go get ready. I had just bought my WRX used from an acquaintance of mine, so I wanted to go out and drive it and show it off to my friends. That being said, I called my boyfriend and a few friends, and we agreed that we'd go and meet at the bowling alley. Once I was ready, I went and picked up my boyfriend, Isaiah, and my coworker and Isaiah's mutual friend, Adam. We took my car since, brand new, I had just gotten it, and the car crazy boys wanted to celebrate it with me. So we go to the bowling alley, and we met up with Adam's girlfriend and some coworkers of mine from the dealership. The bowling started at 10 p.m. at night and ended at midnight. That being said, we decided we'd stay for the whole thing. The bowling alley had options to either pay per game or per hour, and so since we were splitting it several ways, we figured it was just cheaper to pay for the lane for the whole time than just per game. So at the end of the night, we paid our bills, we said goodbye to our friends, and then we all went our separate ways. Once we left the alley, Adam, Isaiah, and I started loading back into the new car. At that time, the WRX had a pairing exhaust on it, which is what makes the car loud or sound good, or however you'd like to phrase that. And the boys, being car guys, wanted to hear the exhaust. "Rev it!" Adam yelled. Just like that, I swear. But being that we were on public property and I didn't want to make a scene, I just blipped the throttle rather than actually being excessive with it. So that way the boys could hear the exhaust and we weren't excessive to the businesses that were around us. So in that moment, we heard a ticking sound coming from the engine. I immediately thought, I probably just have some gravel stuck somewhere. Adam and Isaiah exchanged a look at each other, and it was kind of a look like this, like, I freaked in that moment. What is that look, you guys? I was just going off, and Adam just starts with, well, never what you want to hear in what is that or in any sort of emergency situation. Well, no. Well, Adam started, it sounds like it could be rod knock, which in the car scene is a bad thing. Just drive it nice and then take it to the dealership in the morning when you go to work. I agreed, figured we'd be fine, go home, deal with it in the morning. So from there, I drove Adam home, and then I drove Isaiah home, which was about 30 minutes from the bowling alley. While driving Isaiah home, we listened to music and talked about the night and how it was fun to see our friends after a long work week. Slowly, the knocking sound from the engine got louder. I, being the tired and ready for sleep person that I was at the moment, kept turning the radio up to just block out the sound of the engine basically screaming. About halfway to Isaiah's house, the car started running roughly on top of the noises. So before it was running fine and we just heard noises, but then it started running rough on top of that. I pulled to the side of the freeway and the car killed itself on the side of the road. I was devastated. I can't emphasize that enough. I was devastated. I had just bought this car, and here we are less than a month later, and it's dead on me on the side of the road. Now, I feel I should mention 3 things. First of all, this was mid-January at about 1:30 in the morning. It was freezing. So cold, teeth-chattering cold. Second, Isaiah, my boyfriend, is from Hawaii, and at that point, still hadn't learned to carry a jacket with him everywhere. January, jacket, you'd think it'd go together. I don't know. Third, I hadn't even had this car for a month yet, and it had completely given up on me. As we sat in the freezing car, we called any and every tow truck company that we could think of, and the fun thing with Subarus is that they have to be towed on a flatbed pickup truck because of the all-wheel drive system. Most companies were closed, the others didn't have a flatbed working at the moment, and about 30 phone calls later, I found a tow truck company open with a flatbed. The catch, however, always a catch, is that it would take an hour and a half to get to us. I agreed. That's the only one we could find. Now, think of a car at night in January with the power off. It's basically like sitting in an aluminum can. Isaiah was shaking from the cold, Mr. No Jacket. Thankfully, I had emergency blankets and one of my brother's jackets in the back seat for Isaiah, but they were all light and they didn't do that much to actually keep him warm. So, while we were waiting, a police officer stopped to help us, as well as a man in a pickup truck, which both instances were kind of terrifying. Finally, almost 2 hours later, the tow truck arrived. 2 hours. Immediately, I told Isaiah to go sit in the driver's seat in the tow truck because he was so cold, and I got out to help the tow truck driver. So, of course, when we go to connect the tow hook to the front of the car, we couldn't get to it. I have what's called a license plate relocator on the WX, and it had rusted into the tow hook area. And now this is where the fun part begins. Remember that officer I told you about earlier? We had to call him back to shut down the highway in Bremerton so that the tow truck driver could do a U-turn on the highway and get to the rear tow hook on my car. Finally, we got it loaded and headed to the dealership, which is the opposite of Isaiah's house, I feel I should mention, and unloaded the WX in the parking lot. So I worked at that dealership, like I said, and I knew all the employees, so I slipped my keys into the drop box that they have in the service waiting area with a note to my manager that said I wouldn't be coming into work the next day because there's my car broken in the driveway, but it's cool. And while I did that, Isaiah called an Uber, and we went back to his place. So we left the bowling alley at midnight when it closed, and we got to his house at 4:30 in the morning. I've never seen an Uber driver so sketched out. In hindsight, picking up 2 teenagers at 4:30 in the morning at a Subaru dealership in Gorst probably was strange for her. But that all being said, my car is back and better now than ever. And in conclusion, it took the dealership 2 months and an entire new short block to get my car going again. The moral of this story, you guys, make smart purchases. Don't impulse buy something because you want it. And if you have to work in the morning, probably don't go midnight bowling. Thank you.